Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the ChessTDD series. In this episode, I am going to take a look here at this look at using link goodness for knight.getMovesFrom. And this is an episode that I'm having actually just recorded the video portion of this and seen, what happened to myself. I can tell you that this is probably a very humanizing episode in terms of what it's like to do your own coding. So I've decided to, well, let me clarify what I mean by that. So in terms of your own approach to test-driven development, where in essence, I'm going to flail around a bit in this method, not quite knowing what I'm going to do. It's been a while since I wrote this, and I went and looked at this and thought, man, I really don't like all of these individual declarations here. I think we can clean this up with a little bit of link, do something kind of slick. And so what I started out doing here that you're seeing is I started to kind of wrap my head around the idea of maybe roughly grouping this into quadrants. I wasn't really thinking about it in those terms at this early point in the game, but that's kind of where I eventually got. I was just looking at keeping things green while I was aligning the pluses and minuses for X and Y respectively, and kind of seeing if I could come up with something in my head. One interesting thing to note that I did in the beginning here was, as you kind of watch me flail with commas and such here, when I went to go fulfill this, refactoring this method, you'll notice that I first went to the test class. That's actually an interesting byproduct, I think, that you'll find of the test-driven development process, which is that over the course of time, you start heading directly for the class under test rather than for you head directly for the test class rather than the class under test. And the reason is, where better to go than the test class if you want to see how this thing's actually used. Now, you could go find where it's used in the actual production code base, but that involves some searching, and then you're going to be using it sort of in production-specific contexts, whereas in the test class, you're going to be seeing all kinds of documentation about the design intentions of the person who is actually writing this class, in this case, me. So I naturally go into the test classes first, because that's where I'm going to see the thing getting exercised through its public API, and that's a great kind of stopping point for me in the beginning to pick up and see what I was doing. So that's one of the nice things about this approach, at least in my mind. So getting back to the code, what I'm doing here is you can see I had sort of worked my way to this quadrant concept. And the first thing I did was say, okay, well, what is quadrant one? And from what I remember of algebra and geometry and such, quadrant one, I'm pretty sure, was the quadrant where X and Y are both positive, and then I went in counterclockwise order around to 4, where X is positive and Y is negative. I don't know if that's right, but that's what you're going to see me doing in the rest of this video. So what I'm doing here is I'm pretty sure that I can define, the two moves that will go into quadrant one from the given square. And so what I'm going to want to do is replace these first two at the top, since dividing this into quadrants, with this get quadrant one moves, and then I want to see that that goes green. One thing you'll notice, too, as I'm going along here, even as I'm kind of stopping temporarily, and I think at one point here I was having trouble because CodeRush wasn't loading. Anyway, one thing you'll notice that I do is I get fairly granular in terms of my approach when it comes to seeing the green continuously. I know I'm going to move a lot of things around, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I don't want to have the code not compiling or not green for long periods of time, because then, this is all in the name of refactoring. Everything I'm doing here, I'm not writing any new tests at all. If you're red for too long, if you're not compiling for too long, then 10, 15 minutes in, 30 minutes, at whatever point you get to where you say, you know what, I give up. I thought I could refactor this to something better. I'm going to call it a night, think on it, come back tomorrow. When you hit that point, you don't want to be in a position where you've sort of gotten too far afield and you have to, do something kind of scorched earth, like reverting your whole code base to your last check-in or something. So one thing I've found advantageous over the course of time is to always make sure that I'm, every 30 seconds or whatever it may be, as often as I possibly can, that I'm both compiling and going green. So what you see me messing with here at the bottom is once I had this concept of get quadrant 1 moves, I started to think, okay, what can I do to parameterize the quadrant? And so the first thing I thought of is basically I'm passing in, the only thing that's going to vary by quadrant is whether x and y are 1 or -1 for a total of 4 possible combinations. So what I was looking at here is generalizing quadrant 1. And I think that if memory serves, I'm going to start defining this as the combination, and maybe I do an add range to the list or something, where I'm going to pass in 1, 1, 1, -1, -1, 1, and -1, -1. And so to my mind, that's good because there's a lot of this duplication going on here of this +2, +1, +1, +2. All these different ways I'm defining different L's. The goal, and I say L because that's the sort of move shape of the knight. The goal is to kind of define one and then vary over it enough times until I get everything. Except what I'm kind of doing here is starting to say, well, okay, instead of getting all 8, I'm going to have 2 variables that get me so I can have 4 declarations. It's a fairly complicated problem, I guess, in the sense of trying to define 8 different statements or even a single select in terms of just one thing varying. And I never actually get to that point here. And what you're seeing here, going back to what I was talking about being humanizing, what you're seeing here is me maybe getting too far in the direction of perfecting this. I've got shipping code, so I want to go back in here and I want to make this look nice. It's one thing to pick low-hanging fruit for readability. It's another one to kind of sit there and dump a day into it and come up with something that's arguably not all that much better than what you started with. And in this particular episode, I'm kind of straddling the line. You'll be able to judge for yourself when I get done. It looks so far so good. What I'm looking at here, these add range statements instead of a whole bunch of declarations of new board coordinate, I think that's good. I've gotten the instantiation logic down to 2 statements. This is reasonably clear in terms of what I'm doing with quadrants, but what you can see me doing here that I start to get at next is that I want to have a single data type. So I looked at this tuple of int was the first thing that occurred to me. So I'm passing in 2 integers. Maybe I just pass in 1. After a while, I got not to like this solution so much, but this is the sort of floundering around that I'm talking about here where, do I like this solution? I don't know. Let's see what happens. Let's make sure that I'm continuing to be green as I go and kind of see where it leads, and you can always back out or go to something different. So all I'm doing really at this point is refactoring this to go from the 2 different parameters to the 1. So now I remember something interesting here from when I was doing this. What you're about to see is me not practicing what I preach. I'm about to copy and paste a mistake over and over again because what I'm passing in is a new tuple of int rather than int comma int. And what you're going to watch is me sort of flounder for a little while trying to figure out what the problem is. Eventually I do get it figured out. But, it's worth noting, I mean, this is, so I've been doing test-driven development for a long time. I've certainly been writing C# code for a long time, and I'm making all kinds of rookie mistakes in here, including, copying and pasting over and over again, in as much as I say that you ought not to do such a thing. So, especially if you're relatively new to programming or new to test-driven development, watching these videos to develop an understanding of it or watch someone who's done it for a while in action, everybody makes mistakes. There's no magic to it. I think probably one of the things I'm hoping that people get out of this series of videos is you see a lot of polished products like books, or maybe people do polished video presentations where in essence you see people coding and sort of editing out all the things they do wrong. I'm putting my mistakes on display for everybody to see because I can't say I'm not embarrassed about them, but it'd be silly to pretend that I don't make them. So what I'm doing now is I don't like this tuple concept very much, so I've decided that what I want to do is just pass in the quadrant number. And then I'm going to have logic here in this get quadrant moves that translates a quadrant into the appropriate positivity or negativity. I can't think of the term for that. But the appropriate sign for both x and y. So what I'm saying here is for the x multiplier, if my quadrant's either 1 or 4, then the x multiplier is going to be 1. If not, it's going to be -1. For y multiplier, you can see me actually getting this wrong. And you're going to then see me figure it out after a moment and be very glad that I have some unit tests to tell me. So you'll see the unit tests go red, and then I'll scratch my head for a while. And eventually realize that, hey, quadrants 2 and 3, this is not actually where y is positive. Y is positive in 1 and 2. So I had kind of gone with a mutually exclusive theme or something like that. Well, 1 and 4 for x, so it must be 2 and 3 for y. When in reality, both are positive in 1. Neither one's positive in 3. So the eventual solution to my problem, after a bit of staring at it, I'm going to realize is to change that to 1 and 2. But so what I do is I'm going to go see what tests are failing, because at this point in the game, I haven't figured out what the problem is. I think maybe I did something wrong or reverse things. So what I'm noticing here is that some of these guys are failing, but not all of them. And what I'm noticing that's interesting as well is that it's these returns 1, 2 for 3, 3 returns 2, 1. So it's these ones that are that are reducing the coordinates, and that kind of clued me in a little bit. I'm not sure off the top how long it took me exactly to figure this out, but I know that that was kind of a... Oh, there I go. I think I'm onto it. Let's see if I do the right thing here. Yeah, there it is. So now I believe these tests all got to go green, and there we have it. And life is good again. So from this point, I think I wanted to see if I could get a little slicker in terms of the way this method works, what's described here. I mean, I'm getting a lot more content with get moves from, where now I'm saying, okay, I want this list of all potential moves, and then I'm going to add moves in for each of these 4 quadrants of the knight. And that makes sense. I think this is a readability improvement. Let me see. What am I doing here? Oh, right. So I'm going to go... And I think what I'm going to do is get rid of this concept of defining a list and then adding to it, which always feels... this might even be worth a blog post, but I have, over the course of time, started to gravitate away from declaring a list and adding to it, which I view as sort of inherently state-based. It's imperative rather than declarative. One of the things I like about functional programming and about LINQ specifically in the C# world is how declarative it is. Get me these things. What I have here, all potential moves, is this... I'm about to separate this out, but so I'm going to get this list of quadrants that that I can have. I'm going to define the possible quadrants. Quadrants from a square. Okay. Yeah, I like that name. I have the same taste as myself. So quadrants from a square, and then all potential moves, I say quadrants from a square, select many. For every quadrant I've defined, get the quadrant moves from the starting location with that quadrant. This is declarative, meaning that in this method, get moves from, I am not defining any algorithmic stuff. I'm not saying, here's a list, do a for loop, in the for loop, add things to the list. I'm telling it what I want, not how I want it to go about getting it. And I've come to heavily favor that style of programming because I think it's a great boon to readability. And I think the functional style of programming in this day and age has huge advantages in terms of starting to eliminate state and to allow concurrent programming. I just think on the whole, maybe it's just the style and I'm happening to like it right now, but I have been moving a lot in that direction. So that's kind of driving this move I have towards, favoring link, towards eliminating the list declarations and all that. So now here, I think I start to push it too far. If memory serves, I don't know if I start to get cute exactly, but I can see myself making the mistake with the tuple again. I start to want to get rid of this relatively complex declaration or instantiation of the board coordinates with the basically the form of the x plus some constant times y. Oh, those are bad variable names to pick, but this concept of the coordinate itself and then a multiplier that's positive or negative and 2 or 1. It seems like a lot, so I started to try to pull that complexity out with the goal being I'll just, have something simple in here, forget all this plus and times. Now, as I went to do this, I started crossing my own eyes and confusing myself. Should it be item 1 here? Should it be item 2? Am I declaring the right thing or the wrong thing? And you can be the judge for yourself, but now that I'm watching this instead of typing it, I don't think there was such a method to my madness. This is actually seeming probably less readable, certainly not more readable, because yes, while the board coordinate declarations look cleaner now, I've got this mess above it with ternary operators and tuples, and I wound up backing this out and kind of fighting this thing to sort of a stalemate and going to bed and thinking on it. And I actually think I might have a better option where I can reduce the declarations of board coordinate to a single one, basically reasoning over the values of x ranging from -2, -1, 1, 2, that I can define the y moves as a function of the x moves into a single select statement. Stay tuned, you might get to see that in a future episode, because I realized that what I was doing here, in my opinion, is now I'm getting into time-wasting territory. I'm doing something that's not a whole lot more readable. I'm getting it wrong. I already did a nice refactoring, and this code was already working at the beginning of the day. So it'd be one thing if I were kind of wading through here, making significant gains in readability, but I'm really just kind of pushing dirty mop water around, I think, at this point. I'm not making a lot of progress, and I am failing to make a lot of progress on code that's already working and could be shipped. Bear in mind, I'm not in any way discouraging you from refactoring towards readability whatsoever, but we live in the real world and there is code that needs to ship. So in a lot of shops, under a lot of circumstances, you cannot spend, days or weeks or whatever trying to make code more readable without even knowing exactly what you're going to do. So I think this is about at the point where I said, I like this get moves from method. It looks better than it did, and I'm going to call that a win. And I'm going to go back to what I had before, so you can see me Control Z to undo everything as I work my way backwards here. So one of the things I definitely advise is if you find yourself, and I've titled the post Blind Alleys, if you find yourself in this sort of position where, oh, I see I wasn't quite done yet. But anyway, needless to say, not to offer you up a spoiler, but this is not going to work. And even if it did, this is even worse. I'm clearly flailing now. So this is going on to multiple lines. I've still got the tuples. I've got a more complicated ternary situation. Yeah, this is no good. So when you find yourself kind of going down this rabbit hole. This is actually somewhere where pair programming can be a big help, because if there was somebody sitting here next to me, they might have a better idea than me, or they might say like, just stop, take a break, go get a drink or something, and bring your A game tomorrow. So that's what I'm encouraging you to do, and you would be amazed how often you're in the thick of this and it's not going well and you're frustrated and you just want that really readable code, and you burn an hour, 2 hours or something. You get frustrated, you undo your checkout, you go home, and then not even halfway home in the car, you think to yourself, wow, I know exactly how to do this. And then you kick yourself for spending all the time at it. Give your subconscious or semi-subconscious brain a chance to work on these things. Don't kill yourself. I got everything green here. How about that? So I got everything green. I won the battle. And then I said, you know what? This is even uglier than what I started with. I had forgotten that I did that. I guess I'm sort of proud of myself after a fashion. At least I got back to green. But I had something that I think was worse than what I had at the start of the day. This isn't as great as it could be, but hey, it's better. I've got 2 more compact methods, fewer declarations, less duplication of the instantiation, so great. I'm going to call that green. I'm going to delete these things that I didn't delete earlier. And I'm going to make a note, hey, maybe let's come back to this, but worry about it later. And then I'm going to move on. I'm going to figure out more stuff to do next time, because, they can't all be wins. Sometimes you're going to have days like this. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching, and have a good one.